Hey, this is Eric Jarvis, and this is part 2 of using Mr. Cafferty's feedback sheet. Now, I've created, in part 1, I went over creating the spreadsheet that you're going to use. And let me do a review of that. The important thing is to leave the first 3 columns blank. Because as you can see, it filled in their, as you cannot see, because I blacked it out, it put their first and last name in these two columns, and in the C column, the third column, it put the date that I scored these. So leave the first 3 blank, and you start. And then row 1, this is what the teacher will see when inserting the comment. So all I see is for content. If I want to give them a 4, this is what's plugged in at the top of the page for content. Clear, interesting introduction of topic, demonstrates understanding of the topic and claim, and so forth. So row 1 is what I see on my button, and row 2 is what is inserted on them. And you probably want to keep these fairly short so it's not taking up too much room, and you can go through quickly and enter the sheets, enter the scores. So here's what I have here, and then what Mr. Cat, for every student, this is a student right here, it says yes to the column that they got. And now to make this more readable, what I like to do is I click on the first row, and I freeze the first row to see if I want to see what everyone got. And I'll say in view, freeze 1 row. And then as I go through, I can see the names would be here. Obviously, you can't see the names because I blacked them out, but I can see what everyone got, and then I can kind of highlight a kid, highlight a row, and then just kind of look and see what they have. Another thing I can do is I can get data on how well my classes did overall, and the way I can do that is see how many yeses each column got and do a percentage of that. Now, granted, this was paper edited by me, and that they did multiple writes on this, and so the scores were pretty high. There was not an on-demand writing, so I was like, how'd they do so high? So if you're wondering, it's because they got a lot of input from me. So it was a practice. It was not on demand. So a formula I can use to count how many yeses were here is a formula called count if. And you start, if I want a formula here, and I say equals, that tells Google Sheets that this is a formula. And then the formula is called count if. And then the first thing I do is I put parentheses, and now I'm going to select the range I want it to count if. Okay, so I go back up here to the 3rd row. So there's row 3, and I just click and drag. This is the range. And that was D3 through D, all the way down to D80 something, 87, yeah. 87. That's the range that I want it to pick. Now the next thing I want to do is tell it, put a comma and I need to tell it what to count, because it's counting if the cell is, and then within quotation marks I write what word I want it to count. How many yeses? So I just put a quotation mark, yes, yes, and then the quotation mark again, closing parenthesis, and then I hit enter, and I got 46 4s in content. So now I'd like to see what percentage is that. So I'm going to add, now that was, I can divide by the total number. So I put the / as divide. Now the first 2 columns are blank, and this is 87, so the first 2 are blank, so it should be out of 85. So I can say divide by 85 and enter. So I get this long decimal number, and let's say I want to convert it to a percent. I just go up here and I click percent. So and then I can decrease the decimal just to make it more readable. So 54% got a 4 on content, which is pretty high. So once again, that is =, count if, parentheses, your range D3 to D87, comma, within quotation marks, yes, closing parentheses, / the total number of students that were scored. They got 54%. Now, do I have to do that every single time now? No, what I could do is I could just see the little box there when I click on it, and this turns into a cross. Now I can just drag this to the right, and Google Sheets automatically adjusts the formatting and everything to match the new column. So if I click here, this is rows E through to E87. It says yes, and this is F 3 to F87. So now I see I have data on this, and I can keep this and maybe compare year to year, make it bold or something. So that's how to get some increased data from the awesome Google Feedback Sheets. Hope this was helpful.